Welcome to another episode of You and AI. We are here today with Sebastian Weber. Since 2021, he is the Chief Information Officer at E.ON, one of the biggest energy providers and grid operators in Europe. I think the biggest in Germany. In 2024, he was awarded CIO of the Year for driving Europe's biggest cloud transformation in the industry. And now with artificial intelligence, I'd say the next platform shift, the next technology evolution is here, which certainly has the potential to become more impactful than cloud, some would say. So I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. Sebastian, thanks so much for being here today with us. Did I miss anything in my introduction? Anything important you would like to add?
No, I think that's it. Thank you very much for the nice introduction.
All right, then let's dive right into it. You have written a lot about how AI will change IT, how it requires new governance models in IT. But here in You and AI, we want to start a bit more personal and understand how leaders work with artificial intelligence in their own roles, in their own everyday lives. So maybe you can take us into a typical work week or a typical day. How do you as a senior leader apply AI in your own everyday life today?
Well, I think the truth is you don't know, because it's everywhere today, right? It starts with your spam filter, massive AI in, and you see so many things where AI is already native part of so many workflows, right? But especially if you ask about Gen AI and the recent developments, happy to share some thoughts on this one, but let's come back to that later. I think AI is here across industries, especially in ours, for years. On the personal side, I really get used to, on the business, but also in my private life, on Copilot and others ChatGPT-like things, right? So it starts on the business side, summarizing emails, summarizing documents with Copilot is something where I really get used to. Also drafting replies to many external vendor emails asking me for a meeting also. I really like that feature to really reply quickly. But it also starts to become enterprise search. When I'm looking for emails, documentation, things I have across Teams or somewhere, Copilot helps me a lot. Yeah. Same on private life. So I'm really, since minute one, ChatGPT Pro user, and it really replaces the traditional search. I see it within my family as well. Kids, everyone is really using that. And there are a lot of things which is really, for the personal side, helping so much. It goes again with writing to authorities, mails, or answering letters. It's if something's broken in the house, ChatGPT has an answer, right? How to repair things. But also for sports, I'm in endurance sports. I like it very much, uploading GPX routes and getting some advice on routing, on pacing for running or nutrition. So it's everywhere. And I think even the recent developments is very present in my life.
Makes sense. And again, we might get to like general corporate IT governance, but most of us also have over time now developed their own personal rules, guidelines, how to apply AI and maybe how not. Any obvious limitations or any topics that are off limits where you would say, for me, it's pretty clear, here I use AI, here I don't, or here I tried it, but I don't think it's there yet. Any thoughts about that?
I think overall, it will get everywhere, right? And maybe we see more barriers today which we might overcome. On the other side, there are some barriers which are hard to believe that they will be overcome in the future. And it's around ethics, definitely, where I see a risk in securing what is real at the end, right? Especially if you look to private life and you see a lot of fake news, fake media. I think for our children and ourselves, it becomes hard to understand what is true, what is reality, and what not. Yeah. And on the business side, there are regulations, definitely setting some boundaries, also ethics, setting boundaries, no question about this one. We don't want to harm and so on, yeah. But I think we should not restrict too much on what is not possible. We should now look after the opportunities, yeah, and they are massive.
Agreed. So let's move for a moment to the corporate IT and maybe the more systemic view there before we go back to personal level and the human side. How can leaders and how should leaders drive AI transformation in their organizations? So I think in one of your previous texts, you've argued that Gen AI will become a new operating layer between humans, systems, and data. We can probably take this into the show notes so people can have a look at this. Can you elaborate a little bit? What do you mean by that?
Well, I think that the new thing is reasoning, right? And within the AI space. And if you look to a lot of IT topics, that piece of reasoning is closing a lot of gaps, right? Just if you think about managing incidents, and one hypothesis I posted and shared with my team is that systems will be explained themselves, right? And if you take this reasoning, you can expect a future where systems will definitely share much more about their status, but also about some incidents. So today you're looking at log files, right? And you try to combine metrics and get some sense out of this one, right? But when it comes to the root causes, companies like ourselves, we have root cause processes which help us to figure out in days or sometimes weeks what really happens. But I think in a world of Gen AI reasoning, there will be a time where systems will definitely give much more information. Why has an incident occurred? And the next step is that those systems will interact with other systems, right? That you prompt another system, and maybe system A says, hey, I had a network issue, but I learned from the other network stack that there was a priority for another system, and that's why we're going to throttle the network bandwidth, right? So I think just if you take this ChatGPT experience and put it on our system side, and think about what does it mean for our systems explain themselves, we will get a totally different picture, right? And this is just the starting point. If you then not more of those ideas,
Yeah. So I think that is a very clear vision where things are moving. If we start with where we are today, and maybe to make this more tangible, right? I'm a founder. I run a technology company. We have a software as a service product with workflows, but also this increasing underlying knowledge graph for agents, etc. So how do you evaluate, or how does what you just described change how you evaluate technology and software that you buy? What are you particularly looking out for? What criteria have to be met more than a couple of years ago, maybe?
You mean for the selection of your technologies we use internal?
Those fit into your future IT landscape, yeah.
Yeah. I think there are different layers we look after, right? So as an enterprise organization, what's really important for us is to have a reliable partner on the other side, right? And it starts with a reliable partner in the sense of size of the company, also on their revenues, right? So when I make a bet on something new, I really try to find a reliable partner. And for many, many workloads, we look after the big players just to be on the safe side. When I'm looking to startups, if you're asking for that question, it's more about where do we see a potential real difference for our core business, right? And we did that a couple of years ago when it came to our grid planning. So we were looking for a digital twin for our grid. And that was the only solution available, which also brought us to totally different pictures internally, was with Envelio, a startup at that time. We bought a majority share of them, right? And when it comes to the data platforms, on agent platforms, I really look who has a huge ecosystem, who has the market power to also be in place for the next years. And right now, a big fight and competition has started. Everyone wants to lock you in their stack, but you go with a stack with a company which really should be there with their vision in a couple of years from now.
Absolutely. So talking about this new operating layer and the elements you mentioned there, right? Data, systems, humans. I feel like in some ways that the limitations to previous platform shifts or new technological innovations are still there, right? Things like data accessibility, APIs, interoperability, those are not new. And I think what's more relevant and more of a like central piece of this change now than ever is the human side of things. So when we talk about this AI transformation and how IT, how governance around the IT will change, how we interact with technology will change, what needs to be developed from the human side of things? What capabilities are needed there to move back to the more personal, the leadership, the people side of things?
Well, let me start with saying it's not that new. Maybe it's a little bit different this time, but not that new. If I look back in time, people were coding in assembler, and then BASIC came out as a programming language. And at that time, newspaper was saying, look, now you can speak plain English to a computer and the computer understands you, right? Because you have BASIC, print 10, print something, yeah? So, and always it shifted the human to have work on a higher abstraction layer. Right? So not taking care about memories, about registers anymore, going up the stack. And you had the same with service-oriented architectures, object-oriented programming. It elevated again and again. I think today we have the next elevation. And I bet that in a couple of years, you look back and say, yeah, sure, it makes sense. Now we describe a system. We set boundaries. We define the governance, but we don't take care about the implementation. You define the outcome. You describe what you want to see at the end, right? So I think that the human relevance still is there. And it's quite similar to what we have seen again and again over the last decades.
Mm-hmm. So do I hear, in a sense, it all makes sense to keep it cool and not buy into the biggest headlines of every company will have more agents than employees. The role of management will change dramatically. How do you think about those?
Look, I think 2 months ago, there was this huge set of thinking that junior developers are needed. You don't need any pro developers anymore because the pro comes from the AI, right? So this was, I think, spring this year. If you now look to podcasts, you hear recent research which explains that the more senior people get much more hired from AI because they know how to lead AI, how to lead a junior developer, right? So this has been so clear 3 months ago, and the people went crazy. Should I still hire a senior developer? No, you can't because AI is there. 3 months later, everything is again different, right? So yeah, let's stay cool and let's understand what's the real technical shift. Now, a tool which is much more mightier than before, reasoning is new, and where is my role? Of course, there are specific situations where it will potentially remove classic jobs, right? That's not the discussion. But if you take the broader picture, I think it's so similar to so many technology shifts we have seen with color TV, with the telephone, with the internet, and now definitely a big one with AI.
Yeah, I think a lot. I buy into the idea that probably the closest, as far as we can estimate right now, to the kind of evolution this is maybe like mobile and smartphones, right? And today nobody talks about mobile internet anymore. So I can see what you're saying there. What do you expect from leaders in the organization then, or what do you need leaders to do so your company can actually benefit from these new opportunities? Are there any patterns, any kind of enablement maybe you have an eye on there in particular?
I think understand what's coming. Let's stay with Gen AI, right? Yeah. Because I see also that now everything is AI. Now it's everything agentic AI. Even if you have very deterministic algorithms or workflows, it's now an agent. And even the tech companies jumping on that train with a lot of marketing that everything is agentic nowadays. So I think for a leader, it's as important as the last years to understand technologies. Because if you digitize your business, digital technologies have a part of your journey, you better understand what's real, right? So have an open mindset, experience yourself if something's available, and ask and learn what's real, what's maybe the hype today, but really start to integrating this new tool set into your thinking process and for your vision process.
Mm-hmm. Do you see any patterns in the organization when it comes to adoption, how teams adopt AI, how they embed it in their collaboration? Are there any patterns where you see like these seems to be, or these are the areas where you see successful use cases. These are criteria where you find like, okay, here it really makes sense to go first. Any patterns you develop or you observe there?
Very specific for us at E.ON is that we in a situation where we need more holding back people. So we see so many use cases coming up that we are more understanding how to prioritize right now. Because we are in a situation where a lot of things need to change, the network we are building, we have a lot of work to do. So people are very open, very eager to understand what can we do and optimize, right? With the entire digitalization journey, but especially with AI. So for us, it's more important to understand what are the value use cases. Yeah. So we have the personal experience where we see huge uptake on our internal ChatGPT version, huge uptake on Copilot, but we also see it in the business side that people are getting very quickly to let's do it with AI. Then comes in the capability component. That's important to understand that AI now. And then about the second one, what's the return in that one? And should we put all efforts here or maybe on another use case? So right now, it's a huge interest in the organization. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit like, I think with the forum, we had the term of consumerization of IT, right? Where people figured something out at home with the mobile phone, with the iPhone at that time, and they came back to the business that I went to have it exactly that way. And I feel something similar happening again with ChatGPT and people coming in and say, why it doesn't work like at home? Yeah. And I think that notion is back again.
Yeah, that resonates. I think one of my or one of the texts that got most resonant in the last 3 to 4 months was when I shared the slide on where's the R of AI or the ROAI, right? So that got a lot of messages. I think that's the sentiment in a lot of corporates right now, to the extent that some companies are even like pulling back on AI budgets and establishing like new processes, how you actually have to apply for budget around AI. Any changes like that you also implemented at E.ON already, or how do you make sure you actually drive use cases with the highest impact?
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. We started with let people go with the bus, and we open up everything. And now, since a year at least, we are in a motion of going back to classic, I don't want to say business case, but to get much more rigor into the process where we want to have it. Because we have a huge team with AI people, experts on analysts, on model experts, but they are also not endless at the end. So we're going back to have a company-wide log of all those AI use cases, and we have the classic firms, large enterprises have to better understand what is the return, right? And we really want to see a huge uptake on the business side where something hasn't been possible, beforehand, right? And that's a lot of things in the grid planning, right? Where AI algorithms, not Gen AI, but classic AI machine learning helps a lot to do things we couldn't have done beforehand, yeah. But it's a classic portfolio management, which comes out at the end of the day.
Yeah, makes sense. So we'll consciously keep the conversation in this format short, which is why I've already come to one of my favorite questions, which we ask every leader that joins us here, and this is about your dream agent, right? If we consciously go beyond a little bit, maybe what's possible today or what you've already tried out, if you could have this perfect AI agent, maybe an assistant or beyond that, a sparring partner, a consultant, an advisor, what would it do for you? What are the use cases you would come up with when you think about your dream agent?
I thought about that question. You asked me beforehand to think about it, but if you ask me for this one thing, right, it's definitely something on world peace, which is quite abstract, right? But I truly believe in the power of technology, and I see that AI has helped so many countries to optimize farming and so on and so forth. So the big agents is definitely around healthcare, right? Diagnostics and with nanotechnologies combined, there's so much coming ahead, I believe. There will be my place for the ultimate agent in that space. I can't name it exactly. Yeah. So if we come back to our business, the first agent is around automation of classic things, right? The next one is automation of more complex processes. And the dream agent here is taking over entire situations like self-healing IT. So if you ask me in my role, having an agent which is really taking care about the uptime and the health of an application landscape autonomously, that would be definitively something I would consider, right?
Makes sense. We've launched this AI agent canvas to actually structure these kind of conversation around use cases and business impact ultimately, where we ask like, what's the input, data input mostly this agent need? What's the output? How does it deliver value? What's the outcome? How do we measure that value? And ultimately, what's the business impact? So some of those questions you already touched upon when saying that. What kind of data sources? I know this gets a bit more technical, but that's also what our audience is always interested in. So how do you have to feed this dream agent? What kind of data sources would it need?
Well, this autonomous IT agent, yeah. Well, I think we are collecting already for a couple of years a lot of telemetry data. Right. And I think this is how we tackled that topic in the past. You are trying to collect as many log files as you can, and then do some magic on top to understand what happened or what might happen, predictive analytics based on the log files. I think with the reasoning capabilities, the entire approach will change. Because coming back to the self-explained systems, I think there will be more discussion or a dialogue between systems and subsystems about their health status. I don't think the answer lays into a huge lake of data, telemetry data, and finding the right patterns. I think we're entering a time where components, subsystems will start communicating ad hoc with each other to drive the governance they are part of, right? Happy to go into the details if you're looking for a more detailed answer, but that's the abstract.
No, it makes sense. I think you previously shared also a book about this, right? I'm not sure if I get the exact title right, but something around when AI agents become your customers, right? I think that goes into the direction of thinking agents and AI systems, become literally agents with agencies or elements in that system that you have to empower and embed differently in your ecosystem than you would have your traditional IT platform.
Yeah, and I think this one is even bigger because the potentially the entire World Wide Web will change. Not the internet, the World Wide Web, right? And we see today that we have aggregators in retail, which are aggregating retail smaller sites, and you have super retailers like Amazon. You see it for search, for content. You see aggregators there. But now with ChatGPT, it totally might change again the business model. When I look to myself, my personal life, I start with ChatGPT. And ChatGPT might link me to a microsite, which I have never seen in my classic World Wide Web experience, because Google always planted me within their ecosystem, or Amazon kept me in their ecosystem, right? So I think now it's also interesting to understand who are you serving, right? And it's going back to the API economy and all those thinking around. But I think with ChatGPT, it will definitely change how content is created, consumed, and also transactions are managed across the globe.
Yeah. And it goes back full circle to what you said in the beginning. Between all of those developments, like where's the reality still, or how do you make sure everyone understands this is the core now, and this is the human to human interaction. At Workpath, I'm also responsible for our go-to-market team. So exactly what you described, we can observe that right now, right? I think already now more than 50% of website content is AI generated. At the same time, you want to be found by these GPTs. So you need to have rethink and actually structure your content in a different way so it can be easier found by agents. And I think many dimensions you can see now AI feeding AI with content and interacting. And it's interesting where the human in this equation lands, and if the outcomes and the decisions in the end become better. It's some funny dynamics happening there, definitely, yeah.
I like it. I was always asking myself, or my friends around, what's the split between robots and humans on Twitter or X?
Yeah.
sometimes I believe it must be huge part, must be totally bats driven and with very limited humans. So you create self-fulfilling ecosystems, which is somehow crazy. But yes, I think keeping the reality and securing as humankind the reality is one of the biggest challenges ahead.
Yeah, I mean, mentioning social media there, it really becomes a problem for how society works, right? How democracy works. We had a long discussion how we deal with that, because these AI generated texts, you can see it's written by AI, and as a human, you would like to consume it a different way, but you need to somehow offer it that way so AI finds it. So what we did in this particular example is in our online magazine, we have this category which says like for AI by AI to make it at least transparent, right? Yeah, but again, it's funny, interesting questions that you wouldn't have thought of a couple of years ago.
And we are just in the very first second of that journey. It's just the beginning. Yeah? If people are saying, look, you can see it, here's an error in the picture, it's the second number one of that journey. If you just take 3 or 5 years later, it's hard to understand which extent it will change. Yeah?
I'm consciously taking a pause here. I think those are beautiful words to close our conversation for today already. Sebastian, thank you so much for this short and crisp conversation today. As you just said, things are moving so quickly in this space. So maybe we can catch up again in 9 months, 12 months, and I'm sure a lot of things will have developed. I can already see now the kind of conversations I had about dream agents a couple of months ago. The technology is a big step further in making these things possible. So yeah, would be happy to stay in touch on that particular conversation. And for today, I really thank you for your time.
Likewise. Thank you very much for having me.
Take care. This was another episode of You and AI. Thank you for listening in. If you would like to hear more stories like this, I recommend you to subscribe to this podcast and to visit workpath.com/AI. If you are driving the AI transformation in your company, or if you are a leader who is interested in these dream agents that we discuss here, we'd be happy to talk, and you can always reach out by scheduling a call through that webpage.